What's up, everyone? This is Peter Jennings, and I go by CSURAM88 across the daily fantasy industry. And I'm stoked to be back again here at FantasyLabs doing a lineup review for Week 5. Starting off, of course, with the Three Donkeys contest that Bales took down for the 4th straight week. It's getting pretty embarrassing. Definitely have to check out the Three Donkeys podcast this week. We had special guest Joey Ingram on, and there's some interesting prop bets that have gone on while Bales and I have been here in Vegas. So some good stuff there, but let's take a look at the lineups. We'll start with mine. Really surprised that Brian Hoyer was only 33% owned. I thought he was the chalk. He was over 30% owned in all the high-stakes double-ups that I checked. Thought he was the chalk kind of cash game play. I was the only one on him. He ended up having a really good game, going over 300 yards with 2 passing touchdowns, getting 25 points at below 5K. So he really hit value and felt really good about the process of taking Hoyer. Went Le'Veon Bell, which probably the most surprising thing in this contest is he was 33% owned. The cost was prohibitive at $9,500, but a great spot for him going against Jacksonville, who's been a reverse funnel so far this year. Great against the pass, bad against the run. Le'Veon got bailed out by having 10 catches, but was extremely inefficient in this game, and the Steelers just got embarrassed by this really good Jacksonville team. So going forward, I'm probably not going to play many guys against the Jaguars. I think the defense is very legit, and it's just going to be hard to score points on them. LeGarrette Blount, 100% owned in this contest. All of us played LeGarrette Blount. I almost never play him on DraftKings just because he's not a pass-catching running back, and you can see kind of the downside of taking someone here like LeGarrette Blount. He did have a really nice prop to score a touchdown. It was better than even money to score, which was great for his price. I think that's the big reason I went to him. Did have a touchdown called back on a holding call. And that would have gotten value right there with just that touchdown alone. But 74 yards rushing in a game where Philly scores 34 points. Really a spot where you hope he meets value, and he doesn't. 100% owned here by Levitan, Bales, and I. I went with Pierre Garçon, who 2 of the 3 of us took. Stacked him with Brian Hoyer. Really liked him in this spot. Great first half with 7 catches and 81 yards, but unfortunately just didn't get to the 100 yards, which would have been nice to really go over value there. Do like the spot, though, overall, and really happy with the thought process of taking Pierre Garçon. T.Y. Hilton, I had 100%. Was 100% owned here. Kind of the chalk play on DraftKings. Huge game, 7 catches, 177 yards. Big home run splits, and even with Brissett as the quarterback, I think T.Y. Hilton, while he's priced at that tag, is just kind of a must play and a good spot here at home. I went with Golden Tate, and I was really struggling. I rolled a couple different cash lineups and trying to figure out this flex spot. I was rolling Pierre Garçon, T.Y. Hilton, and Dez Bryant across the board. Figuring out the flex spot was really tough. The running backs I liked, like Todd Gurley and Ezekiel Elliott, didn't really fit. And then there's some other options that were kind of tricky to figure out, and unfortunately, I went with Tate here just because he sets up well on DraftKings. Only 5 catches, 48 yards. Don't love the process here is the pick I didn't feel best about, but just didn't quite get there. And going forward, I still like the process. I do think receivers are becoming more undervalued relative to running backs. Historically, when you first started playing a lot on DraftKings, 2013, 2014, I always had a receiver in the flex. And then last year, I had a running back in the flex almost always because of the pricing algorithm. And now they're really pricing up these pass-catching running backs. So I still think there's a lot of value in finding these guys that are going to get a lot of targets and aren't touchdown dependent. I was the only one with Evan Ingram. I split Ingram and Austin Seferian-Jenkins in my cash game and kind of leagues teams. And Ingram just totally busted, 0 catches. It will be interesting to see how much opportunity he gets going forward, given that all of the Giants receivers are beat up. The one downside is this next week they're going into Denver in a really bad spot, so I'm not going to be using Ingram next week, but he could be a play going forward, given he should see a lot of opportunity with all the injuries the Giants have. When Dez Bryant, who is a kind of a lock across the industry, 100% owned here in this contest, don't have to go too much into that. Great spot against the Packers. Did score a touchdown. Not a huge game, but not a bad game. And then I was the only one on Dolphins D, which set me up to do really well. They had a huge game, obviously scoring 28 fantasy points. Was fortunate to have them. I rolled a couple defenses, but did really like the Dolphins once Mariota was ruled out. Taking a look at Levitan's lineup, pretty similar. Did go Josh McCown, Todd Gurley, who had a touchdown, called back, which was backbreaking out a lot of Todd Gurley across the industry. Same receivers, went with Seferian-Jenkins, Ezekiel Elliott, and the Cardinals D. Cardinals D just to kind of fit everything in here. Good lineup here by Levitan, just didn't have some of the points come together. I do like the call of getting Zeke and Todd Gurley, kind of punted everywhere else. But in general, just kind of missed here with the Cardinals defense. Then we go to Bales, who is just on absolute fire. Went with Dak, who I did have a ton of exposure to around the industry. Melvin Gordon, who was the big differentiator. I had Melvin in one of my cash game teams. That was the other guy I was really trying to fit. Obviously, in hindsight, it looks really bad to take Tate over Gordon, but that's the way it broke down. I really did like Melvin Gordon, had a really nice prop, had a good bit of exposure to him around the industry, but just not quite enough. Bales definitely with a good call there. Went with Jerron Brown, Des Bryant, T.Y. Hilton. And then the surprising move here was Martellus Bennett at tight end. Didn't really think he was in play as a cash game guy relative to these guys. I know the game flow is really good. And there is some talk about getting Martellus Bennett more involved, but he was not nearly as chalky as Ingram or Austin Seferian-Jenkins. But not a bad game. 3 catches, 53 yards. Just didn't get in the box, but certainly was involved in a great game flow. Ezekiel Elliott as the flex, and then the Eagles D, who I went as well across a lot of different lineups. And overall, great score, 161.74. Levitan and I are going to have to pick it up to get on the board. Taking a look here at the Thunderdome, this is a great contest. I was very fortunate to actually get the last cashing spot here. This was my leagues team that I played in 5-mans, in winner-take-alls, the Thunderdome tournaments, and I felt really good about my process for this team. Went with Josh McCown as the quarterback. I used Hoyer more in head-to-heads, 50-50s, 3-mans, etc., but thought McCown did have a nice ceiling here with his price. Going against Cleveland, stacked him with Austin Seferian-Jenkins. Went Le'Veon Bell and Duke Johnson, who I really thought was a good play. I actually was trying to get Duke Johnson in some cash games. Kind of the opposite of LeGarrette Blount. He's really the receiver for the Browns, getting a lot of opportunity in the passing game, still some running opportunity, and I wanted the kind of game stack with McCown, Seferian-Jenkins, and Duke Johnson. And then the play I'm most proud of, that obviously is results-oriented to a degree, but I thought made a lot of sense, was playing Davante Adams, got him at 4% in here in the Thunderdome. Basically, the thought process was, with his status, everyone was going to be worried about him. Is he going to play? And when there's guys that are kind of in that situation, especially with concussions, people generally don't click them. And if they're cleared to play, they're going to get a lot of snaps. And obviously, Davante Adams got the last touchdown, but felt really good about the process of having him. Went with Pierre Garçon, T.Y. Hilton, Des Bryant, so the same kind of core of receivers. Obviously, had Austin Seferian-Jenkins, and then the Eagles defense, which you can see is pretty chalk here at 16%. A lot of familiar names here doing well. Condia, the Godfather, Kaj Kyle. We'll take a look here at Cubs fan 333, who did take it down with a Hoyer, Ellington, Gordon, Dez, Garçon, Hilton, Martellus Bennett, Zeke, and Eagles defense. Going back to kind of Bale's pick on Martellus Bennett, only 4% owned here in the Thunderdome. Did like him a lot for tournaments, but you can see he wasn't quite as chalky as Ingram or Austin Seferian-Jenkins. So fun week, definitely more high scoring than we've seen in the past. Some of the chalk hit, but some of it definitely missed. Going to the Millionaire Maker, I'm not entering 150 teams. I've tried to kind of simplify my process here as we get more into the season. I was playing all the pick'em leagues, doing 150 lineups and all the slates, and really trying to focus more on some of these lineups that I'm making, as well as the high stakes games, which I think I'm going to have a higher ROI in than a contest like the Millionaire Maker. My best team actually was the same Josh McCown team that did well in the Thunderdome, that got the min cash. And then my last team was absolutely egregious, 57 points, one of the worst teams in the entire contest. You can see I got 241,000th place, and there's only 241,000 people in the contest. So basically dead last, only beat 300 people out of 241,000. But the lineup makes some sense. I did go with an Eli stack here, ran it back with Keenan Allen and Tyrell Williams, had Ingram as well. So full kind of game stack here with Blunt, Hyde, and Todd Gurley. That game just didn't come to fruition in the way I thought it would. Didn't have Odell Beckham, who obviously had a good game, and then the gruesome injury. But got some good ownership, and I don't think the lineup's that bad, even though the result was obviously terrible. Taking a look, really cool to see Cal Spears win the Millionaire Maker. Obviously someone who's been big in the industry. Founder over there at Roto Grinders. Big congrats to him for taking it down. I know it was a huge sweat, and a lot of people followed it. Great team here with Hoyer, Melvin Gordon, Aaron Jones, Odell Beckham, A.J. Green, Dante Moncrief, and then George Kittle was really the key here at 1.3%, Antonio Brown, and Dolphins D. So the surprising thing here, and given kind of how everything shook out this week, is he did have Dante Moncrief only get 6.2 points. And I like the play with the Brian Hoyer Kittle stack. But normally in the Millionaire Maker, you need all your players to go off. Fortunately for him, he had everyone else go off, and he had some really big leverage on guys like A.J. Green, George Kittle, and then the Dolphins' D was only 7%. So huge congrats. Obviously a big sweat. He was fading the Green Bay game, really only had Aaron Jones in this spot. And there was a lot of scoring obviously going on in that game. So it was a big sweat for Cal here, but congrats on winning the $1 million to him. So hope this was helpful for you guys. We'll be reviewing more contests going forward. Always going to be reviewing the 3-man. But if there's other contests that you guys would like to see, I think obviously the high stakes stuff's interesting. But if you want me to review 3 maxes or whatever, please give me that feedback. And as always, good luck this next coming weekend, and looking forward to seeing more Fantasy Lab subscribers at the top of the leaderboard.